Good day, everyone. I am Janeline Dumagil, and today I am going to discuss one of the literary approaches, which is modernism. So, what is modernism? Literary modernism originated in the late 19th and 20th centuries. It was mainly focused in Europe and North America. The literary movement is characterized by a break with traditional ways of writing. It touched both poetry, prose fiction, and drama. Modernist writers chose to experiment with every type of conceivable literary form and mode of expression. Now let's talk about the origins of literary modernism. Literary modernism got its start in the late 1880s when writers, thinkers, and artists began considering the necessity of pushing aside preconceived norms and devising a new way of considering one's own reality. Thinkers such as Sigmund Freud and Ernest Mach were very influential in the earliest phases of the modernist movement. Both considered the human being subjective experience in the world and the way that one's own drives and desires influenced the way that one saw the outside world. Uh, Frederick Nietzsche should also be considered when one is looking at the origins of modernism. He wrote about the greater importance of psychological drives um, and psychological drives and mental considerations over facts or physical things. Now, what are the characteristics of modernism? First is it is marked by a strong and intentional break with tradition. This break includes a strong reaction against established religious, political, and social views. Belief that the world is created in the act of perceiving it. That is, the world is what we say it is. And then there is no such thing as absolute truth. All things are all things are relative. Then there is no connection with history or institutions. Their experience is that of alienation, loss, and despair. Championship of the individual and celebration of inner strength. Life is unordered and concerned with the subconscious. Now let's talk about the themes of literary modernism. First theme is worldwide destruction. During the First World War, the world witnessed the chaos and destruction of which um, a modern man was capable. The modernist American literature produced during the time reflects such themes of destruction and chaos, but chaos and destruction are embraced as they signal a collapse of Western civilization's classical traditions. Um, Literary modernists celebrated the collapse of conventional forms, and modernist novels destroy conventions by reversing traditional norms such as gender and racial roles, notable in F. Scott's Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby, for example. Another theme of literary modernism is cultural fragmentation. Okay, so what is cultural fragmentation? Related to the theme of destruction is the theme of fragmentation. And fragmentation in modernist literature is thematic as well as formal. The plot, the characters, theme, the images, and narrative form itself are broken. Take, for instance, T.S. Eliot's The Waste Land, which depicts a modern wasteland of crumbled cities. The poem itself is fragmented, consisting of broken stanzas and sentences that resemble the cultural debris and detritus through which the speaker wades. Modernist literature embraces fragmentation as a literary form since reinforces the it reinforces the fragmentation of reality. Then next is cycles of life. Modernist literature is concerned with representing modernity, which by its very definition supersedes itself. Modernist literature represents the paradox of modernity through themes of cycle and rejuvenation. The speaker must reconstruct meaning by reassembling the pieces of history. Importantly, there is a rebirth and rejuvenation in ruin, and modernist literature celebrates the endless cycle of destruction as it ever gives rise to new forms and creations. Then the next theme is narrative authority. Another element of modernist literature is the uh, prevalent use of personal pronouns. Authority becomes a matter of perspective, and there is no longer an anonymous, um, omniscient third person narrator, as there is no universal truth, according to the modernists. The conflicting perspectives of various narrators and speakers reflect the multiplicities of truth and the diversities of reality that modernism celebrates. Then we have social evils. Another theme of literary modernism is social evils. Modernist novels did not treat lightly topics about social woes, war, and poverty. Modernist novels reflect a frank awareness of societal ills and of man's capacity for cruelty. Ernest Hemingway's anti heroic tales depicted the bloodiness of the battlefields as he dealt frankly with the horrors of war, for example. Then the last one is loss and exile. Modernist literature is also marked by themes of loss and exile. Modernism rejected conventional truths and figures of authority, and modernists moved away from religion. In modernist literature, man is assured that his own sense of morality trumps, but individualism results in feelings of loss and isolation. Themes of loss and isolation, or themes of isolation and exile from society, are particularly apparent in Ernest Hemingway's novels, the protagonist of which adopt rather nihilistic outlooks of the world because they have become so disenfranchised from the human community. So, those are the different themes of literary modernism. Now, let's talk about the parts of literary modernism and how they are used in literature. First is we have imagism. Okay. Now, imagism, when we talk about imagism, in the early 1900s, it was writers such as Ezra Pound, as you can see in the picture provided, whose desire to make writing new gave literary modernism its start in the 20th century. His writings and those of his contemporaries in the Imagist movement were characterized by precise images, brevity, and free verse. Another one is surrealism. Okay, so what is surrealism? Surrealism was a philosophy that took hold in France in the 1920s. From there, it spread out to the rest of the world, but the best examples of the movement are exemplified in the works of French poets. They privileged dreams over reason and logic and gave great consideration to the subconscious, um, willing to come forward into their works. They used techniques such as automatic writing in order to tap into deeper parts of their psyche. And the last one is Expressionism. What is Expressionism? These writers sought to embody meaning rather than reality. They were driven by emotion and experience to write and think about how the world is perceived. The works of Friedrich Nietzsche, for example, are closely related to this part of the modernist movement, most poignantly through his novel Thus Spoke Zarathustra. And that's it for our discussion about modernism. I hope that you have learned something today and understood something today. Thank you so much.